listening to Tapped In, Buncombe County's half hour to empower on WRES 100.7 FM in Asheville. Listen up and get tapped into local important resources, information, and topics. Learn more about the topics of today's show at buncombecounty.org. Okay, it's time to get tapped in. Hello, 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 and good day. If you're listening to my voice, then you know it's time to get tapped in. It is officially 2025, and I am one of your hosts, ZaKiya Bell Rogers.
And I'm Leonard Jones.
And Leonard and I come to you from Buncombe County Communications and Public Engagement Department, better known as CAPE. Leonard, what is going on today?
Well, today we have Stacey Wood, one of Buncombe County's Communication and Public Engagement, PIO's Personal Information Officer.
Public Information Officer. Not personal.
Okay, so a Public Information Officer, and she is here to share with us. As we know, in September of 2024, this area was impacted by Hurricane Helene, Tropical Storm Helene. And Stacey has been one of those boots on the ground prior to the storm, and she's just gonna kind of give us a run through of where we've been, what's been happening, who's been involved, and what we can look for as we focus on this long-term recovery. So welcome, Stacey.
Thanks for having me, y'all.
So Stacey, tell us about yourself. Where are you from, so that our listeners know who we're talking to?
Sure, yeah. Well, like Leonard said, my name is Stacey Wood. I'm a Public Information Officer for Buncombe County Government and one of your coworkers on the Communications and Public Engagement team for Buncombe County. I've been here for 25 years now, and I've been working for Buncombe County Government since 2013.
Wow. So you're at your decade mark. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Congratulations. So, walk us through. We we were told that the 26th we were going to have a storm, and we know that because of all the other storms that were brewing and passing through, we experienced a lot of rainfall before then. So we started seeing things before Helene actually got to us. Can you walk us through where we are now? Where did we come from and where we are now?
Sure. So on the 24th, September 24th, we actually got our first bulletin from the National Weather Service alerting us of this predecessor event. So a lot of rainfall in a very short period of time. And then I had to actually pull my timeline together because it's been a minute. But then we, received subsequent National Weather Service bulletins, held a press conference, press briefing on the 25th as well. Started preparations for shelter activation. Emergency Operations Center was activated at that time as well. So lots going on in that first day or two as far as preparations. And then of course on the 26th is when we had, when we experienced the full impact of Helene. And so, that a lot has happened since then, but as far as response goes with any, disaster, the response starts local and it ends local. And so we have been in various stages of response and now in recovery, and still have our feet in both short-term and long-term recovery initiatives. So that's where we are at this point.
Yeah. And people, we hear a lot of folks saying, oh my gosh, it's been 3 months, it's been 3 months. It's going to take, I always stress to people, long-term recovery process. And so can you explain, what is a long-term recovery plan? What is that?
Sure, and I can give you, kind of a high-level overview. I'm certainly not the expert in, as we all, I think many of us feel we've never been through something of this scale.
No.
And so just the context, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around everything that's happened in this community. And how different that experience is for each person who has been through this storm. And so again, that looks very different for every single person. But as far as long-term recovery, now that, the response phase is over, and that response starts with your local response agencies, can also include your utility providers. So all of those partners are heavily involved in the initial response, sheltering, emergency rescues, water rescues, things of that nature, healthcare. All of those things are a part of that initial response. And then as you start looking into the recovery journey, many of those agencies will transition, those initial response agencies will transition back into their more or less normal, business of serving the community. But the response, the long-term recovery, looks a little different because it requires some organizations to do both recovery planning and organization and implementation efforts and their regular business. So that's kind of where Buncombe County is at this point, trying to continue operations while also pulling together and really organizing and executing a long-term recovery plan.
So Stacey, I just want to take a step back. I know we're talking about long-term recovery, but we had spoken about, as you mentioned, we had a lot of people come in. It started local, but we also had many kind of state and federal support come in. Can you just identify some of those people that came in and help us with that initial aftermath of the storm?
Sure, thanks for that question. It's an important part of what we've been through and where we're going, in partnership with the state and federal partners. So again, the response starts local, but very quickly during Helene, shortly after the storm, we saw FEMA on the ground. We saw state emergency management partners from all over the state and the nation coming in. Yeah, so we saw, yes, for sure, the reserve, FEMA, who else? Who am I missing? All kinds of incident management teams. We had FDNY from New York Fire Department.
PIOs from other counties.
Public information officers from all over the country, all over the state. We had a mobile call center come in from Ohio to provide backup 911 call center support. So lots of different assets, teams from all over the country came to assist immediately. As far as the state's role, they are really they're coordinating state resources. They're working with the counties and municipalities to coordinate their resource requests across the state and to deploy those assets. Then they also serve as a conduit between the local and the federal levels.
I know initially after the storm, especially when we were setting up like warehouses for water distribution, I remember like being at the Monticello warehouse and 8 Walmart trucks showed up full of water to be distributed. So it looks like as well as the state and local, you kind of had corporations stepping in as well, as well as even just individual citizens and residents of the United States just donating supplies and things to the community as well.
And especially around the holidays and things of that nature, you had Lowe's giving out Lowe's is it home and hardware store, but they were giving out Thanksgiving meals. And so we've had a lot of love and support from our community and the companies that are within our community. We had a lot of restaurants and folks, World Central Kitchen.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Red Cross,
World Central Kitchen. And it almost feels wrong for me to even mention groups specifically because to ZaKiya's point and Leonard's point, it's just taken a whole community effort. And there are so many that stepped up to fill the need. In a somewhat of an overwhelming, response. It was hard to coordinate those initial.
I was telling someone. I said it was literally like an anthill. I said all of a sudden the apple core fell down. I said, and you had the sentinel ants. They went out and they were like, "Hey, this is what's here. Let's report back." And then you had worker ants come in after they broke some of it down and they started taking it to the other parts of the colony. And I was like, it was literally like a bug system.
Well, it's interesting that you use that analogy.
I know. Leonard will tell you. I love a good analogy.
But I think it does speak to, it's appropriate because it speaks to, you can only organize so much, but then everything else happens organically the way that it needs to happen, in ways that truly serve the unique needs of every community, because those needs are so different from person to person, from holler to holler, from street to street, from block to block, from house to house. And so again, the need, it was great, is still very, very much there and intense. And so the way that resources have been distributed, again, that organic, the way that evolved was very interesting to see, and all the people and organizations that stepped up to play a role in that.
Oh yeah, I did a lot of phone calls, and I had groups that were calling from out of state. So I was help coordinating them to get to other organizations here, smaller organizations, because the bigger organizations were passing things down. And I remember getting a call of need for over 40 bottles of bleach to a apartment complex, and I remember going, 40 bottles of bleach. And do you know, we found it? Like, somebody had a truckload of bleach, and we got it there, and I was just like, so what I learned was that no request is too outrageous. Like, these things were thought of, and people knew what was going on, because we didn't have working toilets, running water, and so people were in the midst of all of that still trying to maintain, hygiene and cleanliness, especially because you don't want to get any stomach issues or anything like that. Right. So people were really just thinking above and off the box, and I just want to give a huge shout out to our communities, just stepping up and taking care of the elderly and moms with small children. It was we saw a lot of requests for milk and things of that nature, and people getting it to them. Right. And so Stacey, as a Buncombe County employee, what is the biggest thing that you think you've learned in this moment?
Oh, well, I think it's still a little too soon for me to give you an overall takeaway.
Well, in your 3 months, right here today.
Yeah, well, I was not prepared for this question, ZaKiya. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Springing that one on me. Just the value of collaboration, and how it truly takes many different perspectives, people at the table to achieve in this event, it was different because we had multiple challenges. So you can't compare Helene to any other thing that we've been through. Yeah. But just the importance of collaborating and being creative, and then not getting, not taking things personally. It's just things need to get done, and it's our job to make it happen.
So Stacey, I got another question. So this is more on a professional level. So with this disaster hitting our area, we work in communications and public engagement. So what were some of the main channels of communication that we used throughout this process and continue to use?
Yeah. So as I said earlier, Helene, you can't compare Helene to anything we've been through because of those communication challenges. That was a major challenge, with zero cell service.
Yeah, I was gonna say our cell service went completely out.
Spotty at absolute best, and that would be a stretch. No phone lines, cell service, power, right? Physical barriers to accessing our community, not only on major highways, but on every road, everywhere.
Yes.
So we had to pivot. People from outside of our community oftentimes were more informed in the early days than folks inside of our community for those very reasons.
And I kept saying, how are they getting pictures? How did they get pictures when, because like my brain couldn't wrap around, because I'm thinking if we can't see what's going on, how are you? Because no one's getting it to us.
And so, and then from a Buncombe County communications perspective, our team, they couldn't get to us. We couldn't reach them. And so, as you know, in those early hours and days, it was literally 2 people managing communications for Buncombe County. And so that was hard, but we made it happen. It wasn't pretty, but it was twice a day. I think, I can't remember the early days, but the times, the schedules, but twice a day. We use standard social and our media partners, to include TV and radio, were also huge in amplifying the message. I'm talking lifelines. We also worked with amateur radio operators, so they were helping to amplify the information as well. And we tried quickly to get, they're called track lines and you know, in the field, but those are basically those flyers that you see when you're out and about in places where you're naturally going to congregate and see, you know, take in information in person. So we had to rely on those ways of communicating, whereas you know, those things might get refreshed like once a month, right? But we were out there every day with new information. And then it was really amazing to see how the community organized around those briefings and were helping to spread that information in their own ways. I saw many cardboard, you know, handwritten cardboard signs, briefings at 4, you know, and those kinds of things, when I finally did get out to see what was happening in person, just brought, you know, made you tear up.
I remember being in a line for gas and telling someone, hey, news, the briefing's gonna start at 4, and so like everybody started telling each other in the line. So all you hear is the news briefing at the gas station. But the thing, I also remember those first days. I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the fire department. They have to have some type of communication. So I get there and they go, I was like, hey, I'm with Buncombe County Communication and Public Engagement. They're like, oh, great. What can you tell us? I was like, I was actually hoping that, are your radios working or anything? And they were like, no, and they had no way to communicate as well. So out of this, are we thinking of other ways? Are we going like alarm systems? Because I know we couldn't use landline phones. We saw a couple of drones that people were using, but they weren't really giving that information. Like, and we sent out the alerts on the phones about going to higher ground, and those didn't show up until later.
Well, I think that it just depends on where you were at, because those alerts are designed for a geographical area, and in that situation, the floodplain area. But you know, I think it's too soon for us to have a conversation about what's next, because we are still very much you know, still working hard to address, you know, immediate needs of the community now, and but I do anticipate that we'll have that conversation at some point. And you know, I think again the takeaway, the communication path that was really striking for me was that in-person signage and word of mouth.
I also think it was one of those things where I learned for myself, like some of our historical things that we done moved away from. So like with the TVs we have now, I actually went out and had to go out and get an antenna for TVs, which used to come with TVs, but now you got to go and it looks like this.
And the old hand crank radios, the weather radios,
and even just with the radios, to listen to radio stations local more than like listen to your satellite radio, because people were moving on with their everyday lives. It's like, this is not giving me what's happening here on the ground. So actually seeing the importance of your local radio stations that's repeating our information, and actually just going out and buying an antenna. I remember at one point when Spectrum, my neighbor, you know, they was checking on each other, and it's like, "Why you got the TV on?" And it's like, well, we would have got her.
Well, for some people like me who don't have cable, I was prepared with the rabbit ears for sure, but on every TV.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we also redesigned our website in the early days to a light version.
Yeah.
So because we knew that people were driving to the end of their driveways or wherever they could get to that where they could get service, and they were using valuable data on trying to access information through a data heavy website, and so our team flipped the county website over to a light version to help them access that information
Wow, I didn't know that.
more easily. Yeah.
There was so much that went on in the background, and it's so interesting. It's going to be so interesting when we all can sit down and we're further along, if we can just talk about those things like, this is what we did this, because a lot of great things were done during that
Even
time.
language access. A lot of our briefings were translated in various languages as well as ASL, right? Is it ASL?
I'm not.
Yes, American Sign Language.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, but I do know that fairly early on our briefings. I know that our initial press conference, the very first one, was translated into Spanish, and then as soon as staff started coming back online, as soon as they were able to access the EOC and be a part of the communications effort, we were back with almost simultaneous Spanish translation. I mean interpretation very quickly. Probably 2 or 3 days after the storm.
And so I think it's always important for us to remind the community. Today is January the 8th, 2025, and we're supposed to be preparing for a possible winter storm. And we want to remind people, follow authority. If someone is telling you something of authority, listen. Keep your eyes open. Stay away from danger. Avoid power lines. If you're driving and it's a lot of ice out there, get back home. If you don't have it, you didn't need it. So
That's a little extreme.
No. If you didn't have it, you didn't need it. Get back home. Get home. We want you at home. Watch out for trees, water, flooding, any of those things.
Especially the flooding. I think with this storm, it's gonna really change the way.
Because people would drive through water, and that's just so dangerous.
Our terrain has changed.
Yes.
So you have different kind of pooling where you may not be used to water building up. So as this winter weather moves through, be cognitive of that.
Well, and rain events in general, it's important to, like Leonard said, note that the landscape has changed. There are many waterways with debris piles that really change the way that the water moves in a community. So just be aware of what might have changed in your community and respond in a way that will keep you as safe as possible.
And so another thing, be prepared with emergency kit. First aid kits. Always have a first aid kit. We always tell people have at least 3 days worth of food, water, and medication stored in waterproof containers. Take your time to create a family disaster plan. Include where to meet if you need to evacuate, how to get emergency information, how to care for your pets. We saw a lot of that, those concerns about pets, because we see them as family, but somebody else may not. So they may not be able to travel everywhere you go. So you have to decide, how are you going to move with them? Be aware of your surroundings. Use flashlights. Keep charged batteries. If you have batteries and they're old, throw them away so you know where the good batteries are. Make sure have a fire extinguisher, important medications, and back up your data. And here's one thing that I never thought about: have emergency numbers written down and family members' numbers written down from your mobile device, because if your phone dies and you get to someone else who has a phone that's working, you won't have to look up the number because you'll have it written down. Because we know that we do not.
Another tip is get some cash. Go withdraw bought some cash.
Yeah.
Cash.
I had to use cash. I remember for gas,
Mhm.
the limitation on the grid, they weren't able to take your card. So
Well-
fortunately, I had a little bit of money to get gas. But it's one of those things to keep in mind as like as we move forward, we move into this digital space. It's like you need some currency, so go out there and get you some cash
And-
before the storm hit.
Yeah, and the gas though. I mean,
Yeah.
we saw people on our, on our own team who were like, I didn't have any gas. You
Yeah.
know, I was, and now I'm kind of stranded because,
Yeah.
so just a
Yeah.
reminder, especially for winter weather, to keep your tank,
Full.
Yes. or on the better side of
Of half.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't understand. One of the things that we realized was that jar of change that we always threw change in came in such handy. Like, yes, it is hard counting $10 of change every time you need to go fill your car up at the gas station, but it was currency that we had that we could use. So always planning on those things. Anything you think we missed or need to add, Stacey?
I would just say that making sure that you have your important documents available and in a place where you can easily access them. Because just if you have to leave your home or you have some sort of emergency where you need to quickly respond, grabbing that file folder with those important documents, birth certificates, social security cards, ID, things like that, is gonna serve you well.
Yes. So all right, so we are getting short on time. So Stacey, is there one thing that you want to make sure that has been given to our community that you want to reiterate, or something you want to add?
Sure. So the deadline for folks to apply for disaster unemployment assistance is coming up on February 6th. And the deadline to apply for FEMA assistance, that could include a range of FEMA resources, rental assistance, things of that nature, that deadline is also coming up on February 6th. So just encourage folks to apply for those resources if they haven't. If they have damage to their home, please visit buncombecounty.org and fill out the damage assessment form. It's important that we get that information so that you're in the queue and can be contacted if the damage to your home, if there's something that we can do to support your rebuilding or whatever those efforts are. We also have hazard mitigation grant program underway, and all of these resources can be accessed online at buncombecounty.org or at the Asheville Mall at the Disaster Resource Center. So those hours and are all listed on buncombecounty.org.
And I'd just like to reiterate some of the message that Stacey has shared with us today. And you can go to buncombecounty.org, but you also can go to buncombeready.org. It's your one-stop shop for information, as she said, around debris removal, cleanup assistance, legal assistance, Goodwill vouchers, various things that help you as we navigate through this recovery period. So I just want to reiterate at buncombeready.org, but you always can go to buncombecounty.org as well to find out more information, or you may also call the call center at 828-250-6100, and that's Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that number again is 828-250-6100. And as this inclement weather moves through, just make sure, as ZaKiya mentioned, that you have some supplies. I do think there are still distribution centers in our community, and they very much would like to kind of get these supplies out to the community as well. So go by, see what they have, batteries, flashlights as this cold weather moves through and the winter months come. So everyone stay safe and warm.
Well, all right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this wonderful new year. We want to always encourage everyone to please log on to buncombecounty.org and see what's going on. And be abreast of everything that's changing, going on, because information is powerful. is power, and it also keeps us all on the same page. I know that right now we have all been through so much, and I just invite you all to take a moment and just breathe in as hard as you can and blow it out as hard as you can 5 times. And you want one for each finger, so you can count them down. So, and also with that, I hope you're taking care of yourselves, drinking plenty of water, getting some exercise, some sun when it's there. But please know that Buncombe County government is here, and we are working very hard to make sure that our community continues to thrive through all of this. At the end of the day, we could not do all that we do without you all, because we are one Buncombe and you've been tapped in.
Thank you for listening to Tapped In, Buncombe County's half hour to empower, here on WRES 100.7 FM in Nashville. Learn more about today's topics at buncombecounty.org. Otherwise, stay tuned for more great episodes coming up.